In the modern physical media climate, boutique labels such as Arrow Video, 88 Films, Terracotta, Eureka, and of course our favourite, Third Window, have made cult films and world cinema accessible to the physical market in a way that it never has been before. Now we have quantity and quality as opposed to the video era of quantity over quality. Many of these labels cater to the cinema aficionados in all of us by presenting niche cinema as perfectly packaged collector's editions. For many of us, owning Burst City in high definition or forgotten cult classics such as Stardust Brothers is something that never seemed possible. Now they come with an array of extras, accurate subtitles, and official transfers. For fans of East Asian cinema, now you can find some of Japan's most interesting filmographies available to buy almost instantly. You can find some of Hong Kong's most important texts for next day delivery, or the latest South Korean release, subtitled and on the shelf of your local media shop the very same year it's released. At one point in the not so distant past, films such as these were a lot harder to find, and if you could find them, they were often presented poorly, or hidden away in the corners of the rental shop as though they were illegal imports or some kind of sleazy product. However, here in the UK, one label changed the distribution game and became, for many fans, synonymous with the golden age of J-horror and extreme cinema. Yet arguably it also helped create a negative stereotype that still prevails today. Hi, my name is Rob and welcome to my channel where we discuss the wonders of East Asian cinema. Today, the legacy of Tartan Asia Extreme and their impact on cinema fandoms. When Tartan started out, it was a distribution company focused on releasing cinema from all over the world. Tartan released a lot of art house films, classics, and new emerging auteurs. Yet as it developed as a brand, it often championed controversial cinema and provocative cinema from new emerging directors. Essentially, it aimed to show unknown, underground foreign cinema to mainstream English-speaking audiences. Cinema that was edgy, experimental, and shocking. For example, Tartan had distributed films such as Irreversible, The Idiots, Funny Games, and other notable European films that were known for being controversial. As a result, it was not long until Tartan picked up on the new wave of East Asian filmmaking that was happening around this time, specifically that of the J-horror trend with films like Ringu and Audition, a movement that came about from the V-cinema era, a period where filmmakers such as Takashi Miike, Hideo Nakata, and Kiyoshi Kurosawa had to create sensationalist independent cinema that could do well via video distribution. This market was fierce, but a place that celebrated and encouraged creativity and the extreme. V-cinema was the Wild West of movies. You had little to no budget, you had to create something that could get people talking, something that could be marketed to stand out from the hundreds of other movies, and thus it bred a special kind of filmmaker. The directors that found success in this market eventually moved over to full cinematic releases. Here is where Tartan capitalized. They brought over the new wave of East Asian directors that had found fame for their extreme form of cinema and were now releasing theatrical films. The first wave of distributed East Asian films by Tartan was films such as Audition, Battle Royale, Ringu, and The Eye. These were, however, not the Asia Extreme label yet. Instead shipped as standard Tartan releases, founder Hamish McAlpin wanted to find a way to begin categorizing and marketing these films. Noticing that they were a trend, he wanted to capitalize on it. Thus, the Asia Extreme label was born. Here Tartan would specifically brand their Asian releases under a unique title that separated them from other world cinema counterparts, and for many, this was the defining label for Tartan. More importantly, it was the start of a love affair with Asian cinema. Whilst it says Asia, the label really focused on East Asia, specifically Japan, Hong Kong, South Korea and Thailand. The majority of the label became dominated by horror films and crime films. Filmmakers such as Takashi Miike, Park Chan-wook, Hideo Nakata and the Pang brothers became staples of the label with their brand of shock cinema. The box art had a uniformed look, favouring a black box art with the Asia Extreme label at the forefront. One thing that was always good about these releases is that the directors were always a focus point of the marketing. Tartan utilised directors as stars in their approach to distribution. And this helped establish many directors we now think of as household names. Directors like the aforementioned Takashi Miike really owe a lot to Tartan during this period. While a prolific director such as Miike would have found some recognition in the West regardless of Tartan, we can't ignore the role that they played during this period. Overall, Tartan made many directors stars with their marketing, and made their name synonymous with the era. It's incredible to look at the extreme line now, as many films that are considered classics of that era were more than likely released by Tartan. Battle Royale, Audition, Tetsuo the Iron Man, The Vengeance Trilogy, A Tale of Two Sisters, Dark Water, Ringu, and many more. These films are essential pieces of East Asian cinema. They were revolutionary for their time. When we think of this era of Japanese, Hong Kong and South Korean cinema, you have to acknowledge these films. The fact that Tartan managed to distribute an amazing slate of contemporary cinema at that time is a testament to their brand. Many of these films are still discussed today. We still see people writing, making videos or podcasts talking about them. After all, I'm one of them. Here in the UK, we can't ignore the role Tartan played in making us aware of these films, and more importantly, making them available to us. However, Tartan also capitalised on the pre-existing stereotype that Asia is strange, weird, and different to the West. The line focused on a specific movement, but implied that this was the mainstream for East Asian cinema. This was not entirely true, and when this style of cinema fell out of fashion and the directors moved on, Tartan found its label running out of content. This is where it all began to fail. East Asian horror filled a gap in the market for Western viewers. However, this idea of extreme cinema was also Tartan's downfall. Tartan's brand released some of Asia's most extreme films, groundbreaking directors, and revolutionary texts. And most of these films fit in with the vibe of what the brand was trying to achieve. They were extreme in some form, and they were edgy and experimental. Films such as Visitor Q are very extreme, outwardly taboo, but also worthy of being showcased. Lots of these films and filmmakers had a huge impact on Western cinema.
Number 3 would be Takashi Miike's Audition, a true masterpiece if ever there was.
Hence, most of these titles made sense being packaged in a label such as this. However, since Tartan was one of the few labels releasing contemporary East Asian cinema at the time, on that level at least, they created a bit of a stereotype that maybe wasn't very accurate and also drove them into a corner. The issue is that Tartan began to release films that were not very good and sometimes were not, while subjective, what you would call extreme. It began to release mediocre horror films or films that lacked any extreme elements. The Infernal Affairs trilogy is a fantastic example of Hong Kong cinema, but it isn't very extreme. The package, in this instance, sadly mismarkets the series. Fans of the extreme line may have expected something else, and others may have avoided the film as they believed it to be an extreme film. This amazing trilogy was now branded as extreme, and placed into the same category as something like Visitor Q, which it was not. Tartan created a line around a movement, and when that movement faded away, so too did the brand. The problem is that the Asia Extreme line was easily one of their most popular lines for Tartan, but its quality was dipping and its brand was becoming unsure of itself. It didn't evolve. Instead, it persisted to maintain the extreme angle, which meant it had to release exceptions to that, films that didn't really suit the brand. It drove itself into a corner, and ultimately, it created its own downfall. However, as we mentioned before, we can't ignore the legacy that Tartan created, and the films that it brought across. Some of the most important directors of that era were brought over to the West by Tartan. And even now, some of their back catalogue still stands as an impressive testament to what they did. Hey guys, thanks for watching the video. I hope you enjoyed it. When I originally went to make this video, I wanted to do a collaboration at the end with a load of different people with their experiences with tartan, talking to them and seeing why they loved the label or maybe even why they didn't. Sadly, it didn't really work out and I couldn't get all the interviews I wanted and just didn't have time to put it all together the way I wanted. So if you did enjoy this video, then I'm thinking of doing a part 2 where I do some interviews with people, maybe try and find someone who worked there at some point and do like a part 2 follow-up. And if you did enjoy this video, please share it around, because then hopefully some people who would like to say something can get in touch with me on Twitter. You can find the link below and I can maybe make that part 2 follow-up where I interview some people, maybe hopefully find someone who is involved with the brand and that kind of thing, and do a nice little kind of documentary follow-up. So if you did like this video, let me know and hopefully I can make that part 2. Anyway guys, I'll see you guys next time.